beautiful Fort Collins and here with Maralise, and we're super excited to deepen into our stories. And with a specific focus today, we're going to have a beautiful focus on Maralise and her intriguing into journey into wholeness. And just she's got an incredible history, an incredible life story. And I love her business name is Raw. And I just think it holds so much power in the essence whenever I say it and have conversations with it. I can feel the raw from within inside me, just kind of wanting to break through and this kind of rebellious self, but not rebellious in negativity, but a fiery kind of break the rules, break the status quo experience when I want to roar in my voice. And so today we're going to delve into some of Maralise's story and how she has come upon her own journey of wholeness, to integration, to her own journey of oneness, and her journey into being a modern day mystic. And I'm super excited to have her share more of her story. So
Thank you, Sian.
Maralise, over to you.
So it's really interesting because I've been thinking, where do I start this story? Because I mean, every time, you know, you've got pivotal moments in your life, you're like, the story changes, right? So 5 years ago, if you asked me, how did Roar come about? You know, I would tell you the story about, you know, leaving my corporate career after 20 years. You know, I just turned 40 because of a bully boss. And of course, the insights that I draw from that was then, you know, my book, Roar, How to Tame the Bully Inside and Out, recognizing that the bully was inside me. And I guess if you are watching, if you're familiar with my TEDx I did a couple of years ago now, I share my story about being sexually abused as an 8-year-old, telling my parents as a 12-year-old, sharing with them that it's happened. Very fortunately, my parents, you know, believed us. You know, it was something that they immediately addressed, and the abuse went away. But of course, that started my journey of, I call it sort of self-abuse. And that started, go for it.
Maralise, can I ask you, what does like self-abuse and the bully inside look like and sound like? So I'm curious to know, how did that then show up? So your own sexual abuse would have led to something. What happened inside of you, and then what was the bully? What does that look like and sound like for you?
Yeah, so I think it's a very shameful voice. It's a very like, I was ashamed. And I think the ashamed voice sounded something like, you are damaged goods. And it became sort of a narrative around, you are not enough. So, you know, I actually never felt enough, not pretty enough, not thin enough, not clever enough, never fill in the blank enough. And so I think for me, it's a very shouty voice. It's a very destructive voice. It's a crippling kind of voice. Yes.
And so with that crippling voice, just so that even for our viewers, so if our viewers, and I know this construct, I'm not enough, so I can appreciate it. But then how does that show up? So how does that translate into your behaviors in the world? Like, how do you then, as a result of this, I'm not enough, as a result of like this shameful feeling, how does that translate into your outer world? How are you in the world? How do you live wearing those particular lenses?
So I think it's very much a overcompensating. So it's behaviors like people pleasing, very big people pleasing going on, in terms of always wanting to do more to prove. It's a proving energy. So proving myself, really not being able to say no, and really also wanting to really, it's almost like, dare I say it, like a savior complex. It's also about, you know, wanting to help other people, in the sense of, you see suffering and you don't want people to suffer like you because you can really relate to it. But then, of course, wanting to make it better for other people.
And so I guess those are kind of coping strategies just so that you can belong, so that you feel like you belong somewhere, so that you feel enough, so the outside world is now making you feel enough. Would that be it?
I think it is. It's very much about, wanting to, just wanting to, like, and that sort of proving energy I said earlier is about actually, it goes very much with perfectionism. That was also a very key trait, is like you sort of like, especially with the bully and the corporate space, I always tried harder to prove myself, because I thought, if I proved myself to be good enough, if I do it perfect, and this is all ego-based chatter, right? So I always thought that he would change and things would get better, and of course he never did.
Great. So good.
Yes.
So good. So I distracted you a little bit there. I was just
No,
curious in terms of what then showed
so,
up. And so curious to hear then. So where do you go from there? So from feeling like used goods to,
Okay, so if I just sort of fast forward to today, I think where I am today, and I think this is the beauty of doing this work, because it's always discovering more about yourself. And so I'm working on my new, so my TEDx a few years ago, my story was very much centered around my experience in the boardroom, where my bully demotes me in front of my team. And it's that pivotal moment where I listen to my inner roar. So that still small voice inside me say, enough is enough. And then I talk about the fact that I don't challenge the bully. I don't speak up. I don't roar. I literally just faint away. I walk away. And I then talk about my memory of the child being abused by an elderly neighbor, and then telling my parents a few years later, when I understood what happened. And I guess that was the kind of the connection I made at the time, that abuse is abuse, full stop, right? It doesn't matter what kind of abuse it is, physical, sexual, emotional, any type of abuse is abuse, full stop. And so I set it out. My mission is really to alleviate suffering from abuse, especially the self-abuse that happens as a result of being abused. So it's not what happened to you, but it's the meaning that you give it subsequently, and how it then become your addiction. And so now I'm sort of fast forward a few years, and so what I'm realizing now is how much, over the years. When I was 20, I went to rehab for an eating disorder. So my self-abuse culminated in quite a severe eating disorder. So I was sort of like at university, probably the worst time of my life. Binge eating, purging multiple times a day, exercising obsessively, and it sort of got to the point where it got so bad I could no longer hide it. So I went to rehab at 20. And then, of course, if you don't do the inner work, the addiction sort of manifests in a new way, and it can take many, many, many years. So the insight that I now have is that at 40, when I left my corporate career because of the bully, I was actually in another work addiction scenario. So I was literally replacing one addiction with work addiction, and then burnout as a result of that. So it's really amazing how when you do the inner work, you begin to really appreciate, and you begin to connect the dots of like, what's really going on here. And so my story is now evolved a lot more into the inner roar and listening to that still small voice inside you, and really recognizing. So the first R of roar is recognize. Always recognize that you have a choice. So yeah.
Beautiful. Wow. And so I'm curious then for you specifically. So we hear the sort of culmination of the self-abuse, obviously the external experiences of abuse. You're kind of having eating disorders, which is almost like purging yourself away. It's a form of like, let me just disappear.
Yeah.
And that's a form of abuse. And then it translates into corporate environments where you've now transferred the physical body abuse into some kind of like, I guess, workaholic burnout. So still the proving, and I think that's really important for people watching this, is to understand that the journey home into oneness and wholeness, part of that journey can be you solve it in one area, but the actual source of the addiction, the source of the proving isn't dissolved yet. So I am curious, because you now arrive where you've got this beautiful business, you're doing inspiring work, you have this book, you support so many incredible humans to come into more of themselves. But how did you climb out? Like, what were the practical things that you did to resolve the inner dynamics, and what did that look like, so that maybe for people watching this, they can be inspired by, okay, if I apply this practical tool, or I practically do X, Y, and Z, I'm going to be able to move the needle on my own inner bully. What did that look like for you?
Well, I'm just going to sort of caveat that saying what I'm still doing.
Yeah, okay.
Because it's the life's work. It's my curriculum, and I think it's
beautiful.
an ongoing journey of deeper discovery, which is beautiful. So I think initially started a business with the idea of just having a company so I could do physical work, like I can actually do consultancy work. It was never in my periphery at the time to have coaching and training and consultancy business. So Roar didn't exist at the time. And I think Roar found me because when I decided, probably a couple of years in, to write my book, by that time I've already qualified as a certified high performance coach. But when I decided to write my book, I had the book title, and honestly, I cannot tell you why Roar was the title of the book. I just told the publisher that's the title. So I'm still kind of leaning into remembering. But anyways, that's sort of like, I think it was very much the certified high performance coaching work and the work with Brendon Burchard that has taken me into that journey of inward discovery. And the coaching certification was really for me first, in the sense of, before I was coaching other clients, it was mine to learn and to master. And I think that really set me on a trajectory of seeing, okay, so if you take the business model of a Brendon Burchard and influencers like him, they have training businesses where they have online training courses, they have their coaching businesses. So that became sort of my model for where I'm going and where I'm working, what I'm working towards. I think the three practical steps, Sean, if I just kind of boil it down, and as I say, I'm still working on this, is first of all, if you're in a tough spot, get honest, get really honest about your situation and face it. And just even this morning, I had a conversation about, am I really being honest with myself? So I think there's always the mirror which you can hold up to really be, am I being honest here with myself in various different scenarios on a daily basis? Get honest, get clear. And the clarity comes from really asking yourself, what is it that I want? There are so many people I speak to that have no cooking clue what they want, especially women, especially corporate women in senior leadership positions who get to a burnout state and actually have no clue what they want because they live their lives for everybody else. So that clarity about what it is that you want, and then choosing it, realizing that you always have a choice. And then the third step is to get help. You know, the amount of professional help that I've had over the last 2 decades is staggering, but it's people who know and people who can help you move forwards and really, get better and get healthy and get whole. I love that you're saying your journey to wholeness, because that's ultimately what it's all about, becoming your whole self, letting your whole life work, letting your whole self roar. And that's a key message in my story as well.
So beautiful. So if I just summarize some of the pieces that I've heard you say, number one is like, be truthful, look at your situation, call it what it is, have the courage to look at a situation and say, hey, this is what it is. This is abuse. Abuse is abuse in whatever shape and format, and say, and from there, it's like, no, this is not okay. So there's this decision, there's just decisive. So if I had to summarize it, there's some kind of contrast, there's some kind of dissatisfaction, that something is not feeling right for you in receiving how you are, number one, either treating yourself or being treated by the outside world. And that would be a mirror, right? Because if you're self-abusing yourself inside, it's going to show up in your echo chamber, it's going to show up in your environment. So if you just look to your environment is going to express to you and be showing to you practically what's going on in the inside world. There's going to be some parts that are great. There's going to be some parts that are not great. So Mara-Lise got to a point where she's like grabbing onto courage to saying, this is not right, internally and externally, end of story. So let me start deep diving into what's going on here. And once you started to notice that there was this firm decision to want something else, what do I want? And then the choices thereafter to say, okay, now what are the choices that I need to make to start affecting change, whether that's internal work, reshaping your thoughts, feeling better about yourself, getting external help, working on that inner world. You went into a coaching process, which even though you were learning coaching, that ultimately shows you the way into your inner world. And then from there, you start to say, okay, well, I want a different reality. And how do I start climbing out of this reality? And what are those mechanisms to support me in the climbing out, right? Until that now becomes a new reality. So now you're on a new timeline. You have a beautiful business. I know you're coming over to the States. I'm super excited about that. You're going to be doing another talk shortly in September, the end of the month. I know you're going to be standing on another stage. And so your book is flourishing. You're flourishing. So you're in this new reality. But like you say, there's always going to be the opportunity for the next. Like, so what's next based on this place? So I had a really powerful experience on the weekend, and I do want to ask you a couple of questions just to explore your inner world a little bit, if that's okay. Maybe do it live. But needless to say, on Sunday morning, after this really profound experience that I was in a container with a whole bunch of people and had some personal coaching by an incredible human, but the next morning it was so profound that it was such an immediate rewire. And so there's so many, the veil is thin. If you can really get into spaces where someone who's really proficient can help you collapse some of the key stories. Like you can hear Mara-Lise was wearing a set of glasses that was saying, I'm not good enough. So now she's looking at her past and saying, I'm not good enough. I had abuse. There's something wrong with me. What's happening to me. So she looks to her future with that sort of same scenario. And then actually the same scenario is playing out at work. She's still creating the scenario of I'm not good enough. So she gets this bully boss who shows her, you're not good enough. So whatever, if you're not proficient at understanding the inner language, the narrative, the context that is influencing what glasses you're wearing, you can change the eating disorder. You can get support with that. But if you're not changing the inner narrative, it's just transferring into something else. That's still playing, and your thoughts create your reality with the emotion. And so, as you heard with Mara-Lise's story, even as she looks to the future and she gets into the corporate world, she's now chasing still, and she has this bully boss, and she's like, hang on, but what the fuck, So, so as you collapse those inner worlds, and I'm going to just ask Mara-Lise shortly a couple of questions and see if we can just to help viewers just to something you can do for yourselves to test your truth. On Sunday morning, I was going for a run out in Frisco. I'm back in Fort Collins now, and there was this building, they're busy building, a new set of townhouses and whatever, and the banner that that is on the outside of the building promoting, obviously, the contractors was like, build from higher ground. And it was so profound. And I ended up going for a walk a little bit later, and the walk was going up the side of a mountain, but the build from high ground was just like kept really coming through for me, because so often, even when we're trying to create a new reality or manifest a new reality, we actually haven't shifted into the higher ground internally. So we're still building from the same ground, and we're getting the same reality, and people are like, this is not working for me. So to extend the story, so I go on this walk in the morning, and I start off, Ollie and I, we're in this beautiful forest. It's really absolutely stunning. I popped over to Breckenridge Mountain Time. We're in this beautiful forest, and I'm looking around thinking, oh wow, like if this is my high ground, amazing. Like, look what I've created. Like, I'm in this beautiful place. I was house sitting at a friend's house, and we're next to this beautiful stream. And so I start walking up, next to the stream, and we're walking up, and I don't know really where I'm going, but it's cool. And I follow the path, and the path sort of takes me out into this beautiful valley type thing. And I look up the mountain. I posted on Facebook. I was doing a bit of a live on it. So now I've climbed quite a bit, and I'm looking up, and I'm like, oh, wow. But now I'm out of the forest. I'm in the sunshine. It's this beautiful kind of meadow look and feel. I can't exactly see where the path is going. And I turn around, and I look behind me, and I look at the journey that I've traveled. And it was so beautiful to turn around and look at where I was in the forest. But immediately as I turned around, I had this whole different view, a whole different perspective, because I was on higher ground. And I was like, oh, like, do the inner work so that you can create something different, so you can get to higher ground. And when you get to higher ground, you're going to see a whole different perspective. And like you're saying, Marlies, that's just for now, because I still would look up, and I didn't know where it was going. And so my mind couldn't predict where I was going. I could just see the next steps of the path. Couldn't see exactly how the path was going to get me up to the top, because we don't know. We want to predict. We want to try and predict our future based on the past, but you can't. You have to be comfortable with the unknown. You have to be comfortable with just in the present now. Appreciate your past, let it go, and then be on higher ground to continue traversing your journey. So let's see if we can get onto a little bit of even higher ground for you, even more higher ground, Marlies. It'll be fun just to do this very quickly. It's so if you went in with that idea of like, there's something wrong with me, I'm not enough, I guess, would that be an accurate summary of, let's say, a key program that you are holding? There's something wrong with me, I'm not enough.
Yes. I'd say a part of me up until now, because I'm no longer defined by it. But I think there's historically there's been a worthiness, a self-worth problem. Yes.
Okay. So if we had to summarize, like, I'm not worthy, right? I'm not worthy. How would that translate? I'm not worthy to receive more client. And I'm just using this as an example, so it doesn't mean it's happening.
For me now, and it's interesting you say receive, because that's actively what I'm leaning into right now. Is I'm inviting peace and ease and flow, and it's a very new program for me, because historically everything was, it was a very, very hard work, graft energy. So I want to let my cup be filled. So people always say, fill your cup, but I want to let my cup be filled. So I'm actually inviting, right? So I'm inviting the universe to bring me. I'm open to receiving, if that makes sense.
Beautiful.
Well, it does make sense. It makes perfect sense. Yes.
So if we had to summarize the lenses through which you're looking and which you're resolving, it would be, I'm not worthy to receive easily. In other words, it's got to be a struggle. I've got to be in the trenches. I've got to work hard. I'm not worthy to receive easily, just for being me.
Yes, that's perfect. Yeah, I would say, I would just add a part of me. A part of me.
A part of you doesn't feel worthy. Yeah, not all of you. Perfect. So part of you doesn't feel worthy. So this part of you that doesn't feel worthy to receive just for being me, because I'm enough. So it would then be underlying, like, I'm not enough. A part of you doesn't feel enough to receive just for you, just for being you. So, Marlies, if we had to cut you open and go into your heart, right, would we find a label there in your heart that labels you as, I'm Marlies, and I'm not, there's a part of me that's not worthy to receive just for being me? Are we going to find that actual label on your heart written there?
No, I don't think so.
Like right now, I'm going to cut you open, cut your body open, go into your heart. Is there a label?
If I lean into a feeling, I have that feeling multiple times a day, right?
But is it true? Is it true that when I cut you open, like physically cut you open, that there's a
No,
label that's been stuck to you
no,
that
there's
you were
no
born
label.
in? Okay, so is it
So
true
it's
then?
like, no, it's not true. It's an absolute lie.
Okay,
But I'm
wow,
leaning
interesting. That's okay. That's okay.
yeah,
Remember, you want to. Your ego has an identity that's made up of
yeah,
thoughts, feelings, and actions, and your ego is going, "Oh, I got to hold on to this identity." But actually,
yeah.
again, I'm going to ask you: is it true that if I cut you open right now in your heart, there was a little label that you were born with, and the little label says, "I'm Marlies," and there's a part of you that's not worthy to receive easily because of me?
It's an absolute the biggest lie ever.
Okay, wow, imagine that. Cool. So then if you could imagine a that it's impossible, if you could imagine a reality where it is impossible because it cannot exist, there's no label in you. So we've shown that that is not true, that your mind just created that series of words, but there's no actual label. So if you can
No.
imagine that it's absolutely impossible, a reality that exists that cannot exist, that says, I am not worthy to receive. It can't exist. It's impossible. What does that feel like for you?
It feels very good. It feels light. It feels absolutely magical, profound, liberating. It's like my feet are tingling right now, which is a good sign. So yeah,
And
it feels fucking amazing. Yeah.
there we go. Awesome. So how might now things be different for you in this reality? Because it's not true. How might things be different?
I would just really believe and have that conviction that it's done, it's happening, it's done, and it's I'm kind of in partnership with the universe. I'm in collaboration with the universe, and it's happening. I've got to just trust that it's happening.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Beautiful. I love that. I really love that. And it's that frequency, right? It's staying in that sort of higher vibration,
Yeah.
which is then the opportunity. Well, certainly for me.
Yeah, beautiful. So always just check the truth. It was what was Marlies was saying earlier, is like, just check the truth and go inside yourself. Like, have you been born with that particular label? Check it out. And then you just got to imagine, as I say, well, what is actually true? And the truth of it is, just like I was saying, I couldn't see the path up to, I didn't go all the way up the mountain. That would be my next trip. But I only saw what was next. But what this does highlight is that there is a possibility of another reality. But the ego wants to, so part of it is the ego wants to hold on its thoughts, identity, actions, emotions. So it's kind of like, oh, hang on, but what does that mean if it's not true? And then you get to build up another identity. And the truth of it is, we don't know what's going to happen in the future. We don't know. Marlies couldn't know that I was going to do that process with her. Did you know I was going to do that with you?
100% not. And can I just say, what's really a profound insight that I've just had is that sometimes when you ask yourself the question, is that true? It may feel true, but it's still a lie. So I think it's really important to distinguish so as Sean was saying to me, is that true? I was kind of like hesitating because I was like, but it feels But if you just literally look at the actual act of cutting open and visually seeing a label, that's not true. But there's still that, it's hard sometimes to determine the truth. I guess is what I'm now leaning into, because it feels so. It's important to try and take sort of the emotion out of it as well. So that was super helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. And it just kind of shows, we've been speaking the last couple of weeks around the closet and the lenses. Remember that a thought for our viewers is only a series of words. Somehow we had to put a series of words against something. And so we have this thought in our head that I'm not good enough. I can't just receive because of me. Like, those are just a string of words. That's it. And then there's a feeling that's associated with that. But if you just slice, even open your brain, and you take that thought and you say, okay, well, there's a label that in your head, in your mind, is the thought that says, I'm not good enough. Are you going to find that? Then you start to realize, wow, what have I filled my closet with? What have I filled my room with that was fed into me somehow because I had these experiences? And so what Mara-Lise is demonstrating is how then karmically her journey, when she incarnated, her karmic journey was to come in, have experiences of the abuse, or have experiences of the self-abuse, of being abused by others in a number of different contexts. So the external abuse was her soul creating these experiences for her to wake up and release that truth in this lifetime, that she is so worthy, to come home to the truth of, like, she is so worthy, she is so beautiful, she is so worthy to just be. She is more than enough. And she can start releasing that now as she comes home to the truth of who she is in being. And she can start releasing and have this beautiful self-love and experience in the world of being free of that particular label that she knows is not true. And if ever she gets into that feeling again, she can just slice herself open, check if there's a label, and then imagine a reality without that. So beautiful, Mara-Lise. Thanks for playing.
Thank you for that very masterful facilitation. I really, really appreciate that. And I feel like we want to leave it there, because I'm certainly feeling very good now, and I want to sort of hold on to that as long as I
thank
can.
you.
Yeah, so this was absolutely a stunning intervention, for want of a better word. We're obviously doing this to give people a really deep insight into what this work really means practically. And so if you are watching the replay and you are really finding this very useful, get in touch with Sian and myself. You can in the show notes, you'll be able to find all our details. But yeah, we just really love to support you on this journey. So thank you for joining us today, and thank you, Sian, for that. That was absolutely
beautiful. Yeah, thank you for playing. So lovely to see you all. We'll see you all next week. Have a fun week.
Have a great week, all. Bye for now.
Bye.